Hey everybody, I just got in from work and it is an absolutely beautiful day out today, so I think today is the day we're going to go out looking for some crayfish to put back here in my native tank. I've added some aragonite, so I've brought the water hardness up a little bit, and more importantly I'm going to be stopping by the Good Fish store probably next week, and while I'm there I'm going to be picking up some Texas Holy Rock or some other sort of calcium or limestone type rock that I can put in the tank, which will increase the water hardness even more than I've already done. So we're up to about 3 degrees hardness now, and I would like a little more than that for the crayfish, but that is only really going to come into play when the crayfish are ready to slough or molt if you prefer. So living in this water will be absolutely fine, and in fact with the 3 degrees hardness in there and with some calcium in their diet, they may be just fine with the water the way it is. But as I said, we're going to be adding some Texas Holy Rock or something like that in there next week, and that will bring the hardness up. So today's the day we're going to go out and look for some crayfish. I'm going to try to find 4 small ones, and we'll let them grow up together and see who basically is the survivor at the end of it all, because as I always say, there can be only one. This is a 40-gallon tank, and these crayfish get about 5 to 6 inches long. They're pretty territorial, they're pretty aggressive, and so ultimately we're going to end up with just one of them here in the tank over the next several months. But hopefully we'll get to see some really interesting stuff in the meantime. So today, I think instead of just going right down the street where we would normally go, I think we're going to go somewhere different. I don't really know exactly where I want to go yet, but we will go somewhere, and we'll take our dip net and a bucket, and we'll see if we can't catch some crayfish. So sit tight, and I will see you down by the water. All right, everybody, we are here at Graves Run. And this is where Graves Run flows into Pretty Boy Reservoir. Technically, everything downstream from the bridge right here is already Pretty Boy Reservoir, but it really doesn't sort of turn into still water until we kind of get down here and go on out. So this is where I caught all of the gambusia that is in the native tank right now. So if we can find any little crayfish here, they'll basically be joining some of the fish that came out of the same spot. But I've never really noticed a lot of crayfish here, so I don't know whether we're going to find any. I can definitely see some signs of something living underneath of this rock. I just don't know what it's going to be yet. Oh, I just saw a little sculpin stick its head out. There goes the little sculpin. I don't know if you noticed that moving around on the camera or not. So we'll put that rock back because I don't think that's a crayfish. See this little fish right here? That's one of those sculpin. I've never had any luck keeping them alive in my tank, so we're not going to bother taking that one home. I've sort of given up on them. I just feel like I'm taking them home to let them die in the tank because they never survive. Once again, we got 2 more of those sculpin living underneath of that rock. I also don't know how well you can see into the water, whether there's any glare on it or not. I always forget that I'm wearing the polarized sunglasses, so I can see right through the water. And sometimes, depending on the glare and the camera angle, you cannot. So hopefully you're getting a decent idea of what I'm doing here. I'm just sort of poking around underneath these rocks, see if I can stir up a crayfish or two without muddying the water all up. And if you'll notice, we're working our way upstream so that anything we do disturb flows away from us. And I'm beginning to think we might have to go back to the good old tried and true Murphy Run, which is the name of the stream across the street from my house. Well, that was definitely a crayfish.
and a smallmouth bass just darted out and tried to eat it. I don't know if you can see that little puff of smoke right there, but that crayfish shot across the water and a bass came out and tried to gobble the crayfish up. So I don't know if it actually got it or if the crayfish is under this rock. Oh, there's the crayfish right there. That's bigger than I want. But it'd be interesting to see if we could catch it. Oh, there he goes. I can see this one. He sees me coming too. He's still backing away from me. If we can catch this one, I'm definitely going to take it home just because of the circumstances. There we go. Remember, crayfish always dart backwards when they panic. So the way to catch them is to just put the net behind them and scare them, and they'll run right into the net for you. So not too small, but still bigger than I was looking for. I was looking for 4 little teeny ones. So we'll start with that one and see what else we find. We have a family walking down the trail there in a minute, so they're probably going to think I'm crazy talking to myself. Or they will be smart enough to figure out I have a camera on my head and I'm probably talking to my camera. But you'd be surprised how many people look at me like I'm crazy. Oh, there he goes. That's a tiny one. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. Hello. That's a little more the size we're looking for. In fact, I think we're going to put this first one back. That's just a little bigger than I want. Well, he made it to the bottom and underneath of a rock without any fish coming after him, so he'll be okay. Alright, now let's see if we can find a couple more small ones like that. And another one of those little sculpin fish, or darters, or whatever they are. Oh, that was a big one. Oh no, that's a little white suckerfish like I have in my 125 or in my New World tank. That was a little one though. That was kind of interesting. I wouldn't have mind catching that one. Alright, there goes something. Nope, that's another little sculpin or darter fish. I keep calling those sculpin. These are darters. Alright, we're running out of rocks to kick over here soon. Lots and lots of those little darters. There's tons of them in here. Yep, that was another fish. I keep seeing movement when I kick the rocks over, but every time it's turning out to be those little darters. Maybe I shouldn't have thrown that other one back. Well, I said there can only be one in the tank, which I kind of would like to bring several of them home to watch them grow up. But by doing that, of course, you do realize that means 3 of them are going to be killed at some point. And it would be almost like, you know, sort of gladiatorial combat. We'd literally be putting 4 of them in the tank to see which one of them survived the longest. And I always feel a little guilty about that. Not too much, because they are crayfish, and they're called mud bugs for a reason. They literally have a nervous system that's less complex than a cockroach. So I generally don't feel too bad about that kind of stuff, but I do feel a little guilty about it. And so if we only go home with just the one and we watch that one grow up in the tank, that'll be okay. But it would be interesting to watch several of them grow up, because that does give you an idea of what their natural competitive, aggressive behavior is. They are a really ferocious little animal when they want to be. Just knocked myself over backwards. Alright, let's try a few more rocks. Maybe we'll go down here and see if there's not a couple of rocks down there we can kick over that I haven't muddied the water up yet. And another one of those little fish. There's some little teeny tiny fish swimming around. I'm tempted to try to catch some of them, but I already feel like we've got enough. I already know that's not a crayfish. Oh wow, that's a tiny crayfish. I definitely want to catch this one. Let's see if I can get him to come out again. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. That is a tiny crayfish. That's so tiny, I'm almost thinking that sunfish in the tank might already be big enough to eat that little thing. So it'll be, I'll have to make sure when I put it in that I give it a good chance to get to the bottom before that sunfish has a chance to get to it. Lots of little tiny fish swimming around. Here's another rock with a little cave underneath of it. Let's see who's living under here. Oh, it looks like nobody. Or at least nobody was home. Alright, now what I'm really doing, oh there, that dead fish right there, that is one of those white sucker fish that I have in my 125 gallon native tank. So that gives you an idea how big they might get. And I've seen them much bigger than this. They definitely get bigger than that. So, I mean, that gives you a pretty good idea of how big they are. So the one in my 125 gallon New World tank is definitely not anywhere approaching full grown yet. Nothing. Alright, well it's just going to start getting mucky as we head down that way. Let's go back, make one more pass. I think by now a lot of the silt and stuff that I stirred up should be washed downstream. And I think if I get my eye in, I might be able to find another tiny little crayfish like that. And that would be awesome. I definitely would like to take a few of those home. Now I got excited. I thought I found another tiny little one, but it was just a little stick. When I flipped the rock up, it just the water flowing out from underneath the rock just pushed the little twig, made it move. False alarm. Alright, I think we're just about calling it good here. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not even seeing any of those little darters. Oh, there's one. Spoke too soon. Let's see if we can get him to come out the right direction. Now, this is definitely a larger one. Let's figure out where he went. There he is. He's still sitting in the same spot. Now, this very well could be the one I let go earlier. So we'll go ahead and keep him. We'll call that good. So we got the tiny one, medium one, and we'll call that the big one, even though we know that that's not actually big for a crayfish. Alright everybody, that's my ride, and I will see you back at the fish tank.
Alright, here we are back at the tank, and I tested the water that we brought back from the stream. I know when you've got animals in a small container of water for any length of time, just their biology will affect the water chemistry, but for the 10 or 15 minutes for the water we had and for the tests I took, I'm not really worried about how much the crayfish might have affected the water. So the TDS, or the total dissolved solids, was about 96 to 97 parts per million. It was fluctuating there a little bit, which is about half of what comes out of my tap, so that's not a lot of anything in that water. I tested the hardness, and I got 4 degrees general hardness, so that's only 1 degree harder than what this tank is sitting at right now. And just for fun, I tested the nitrate to see if we came up with anything at all, and that is what we got. So that's somewhere maybe a little north of 5, but not quite up to 10 yet. So we'll call it 7 parts per million, 7.5 parts per million, somewhere in that neighborhood. And that's about all we've got for the nitrate. So the water is fairly similar to mine, or it's similar enough that these crayfish aren't going to go through any problems at all. In fact, the water they're in right now is just straight up tap water. I ran out of my tap so that I could pull them out of the container we had them in at the stream, and I could use that to test. And so these crayfish have already been sitting in this tap water for, I don't know, the last 10 or 15 minutes that I've been over there running my little tests. So once again, I'm going to assume that these are all the same species. They are the virile crayfish, at least that's what I believe they are. I know that's an invasive species, but in all my life I don't believe I've ever seen another species of crayfish in Maryland. So that's the big one, safely on the bottom. Let me try to catch the medium-sized one here. So there's the little medium one. Oh, he's going to land right on the other one. Well, I guess we know who gets that cave. And I'm not sure if the fish are coming over because I'm standing here, and they are sort of finally getting used to the idea that I'm the one that brings them food. They don't run and hide anymore. Well, they do when I first walk up, but as soon as I've been here for a moment, they come right back over. Now that was a stern look from that sunfish right there, caused that crayfish to start backing up pretty quickly, and now it's actually heading back towards the cave where it's got the larger crayfish in it, which is never a good idea. And there's certainly plenty of room in the tank for these crayfish the size they are now. It won't be until quite a few molts from now, when they've gotten considerably larger, that they begin to become problematic with each other as far as, you know, really fighting it out and tearing each other apart. Oh, lo and behold, look back there. So he snuck out the back door and went on around, so there's no wonder that that little crayfish went right on in without any problem, because the bigger one has already been out exploring. They really are cool animals. I really like the crayfish a lot. They're so much fun to watch crawling around the tank and doing their little stuff. They're like little construction workers. They're always moving stuff and digging. You'll see them pick stuff up and move it out of the way. You'll see them drag sticks and branches out of their way to dig around looking for food. And then, of course, the way they fight for territory and will kick each other out of their caves and everything. Just really fascinating little animals. So last, but certainly not least, even though it is the least in size, we're just going to go ahead and pour this one straight in. You know what? Actually, let me go ahead and see if I can't catch this one too. This one's the kind of a bugger to catch because he's so small. He keeps slipping through my fingers. There we go. And we are going to gently release him way down here in the tank. And that way he's got a little bit of a fighting chance to get right in there and get down into a cave and away from any of those fish. The only fish I'm actually worried about gobbling that little one up right now is that sunfish. That sunfish was already eyeing that medium one up. So if it gets a chance, I'm sure it will go after that small one. And the sunfish are aggressive enough that even if it can't actually eat it, it will peck at it. It'll tear its legs off, or it'll tear its antenna off, and eventually, once it's been wounded enough and it can't really do a lot, it'll just start pecking away at it and it'll break it apart. It can be really brutal watching one of those sunfish if it's an aggressive enough species of sunfish. That's why I've been saying all along, I really hope I got just a regular bluegill, because I think they are going to be a little less aggressive than some of the other species, but we'll have to wait and see. But there you go. I'm pretty sure that's just a bluegill, so we'll find out. All right, everybody, that was today's adventure. I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss any of the upcoming adventures or updates of the crayfish in their new home. As long as I can keep the water hardness where it should be, we shouldn't have any more issues with them sloughing or molting. Again, whichever way you prefer saying that, doesn't matter to me. So thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you're subscribed. You never know what you're going to get with me. Don't forget, this one here is my 40-gallon native tank. Thanks again, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.